Hey y'all, coming to you a little bit later than usual today. Had a couple of technical difficulties, but wanted to drop in today, um, give you guys a little bit of unconscious mind conversation. Um, and today, one of the things that I want to talk about is, and it's been on my mind, it's been on my mind a lot the last week, is the principle that the persons with the most flexibility, the person or the systems with the most flexibility controls the system. Let me say that again. The persons or the systems with the most flexibility controls the system. And why? Because it gives you more choices, and choice is always better than no choice. Now, sometimes I think people believe they have no choice, but we always have choice when we recognize the potential for behavioral flexibility. And that's what I want to talk about. When I talk about the person with the most flexibility controls the system, we're not talking about external influence. We're talking about internal influence. We're talking about mental flexibility, behavioral flexibility, right? So sometimes, oh, and by the way, you guys know who I am. I'm Dr. Maisha, right? Your NLP coach, master practitioner, trainer. For those of you who have not listened to me before, sometimes people can be rigid, internally rigid, inflexible. And you'll see it because these people will not like change. They'll be resistant to change. Take, for instance, I'll share by myself. You guys were back in the days of MySpace. Those of you all who were my age, which I call myself mid-career. I will not reveal my age at the moment, but some of you who know me know that I am a middle-aged person. But back in the days of MySpace, so back when social media first came out, there was MySpace. I think that was the first social media. It's MySpace. And let me tell you, I resisted getting on MySpace. It was a new thing, but I felt like, well, my business at the time was my integrative medicine practice. What am I doing on MySpace? That's for artists. I'm not an artist, even though I am a spoken word artist. People don't know that about me. I write poetry. I have been since I'm age 11, but I thought, but that's for people who want to perform. Eventually I got on MySpace. I built up my following, and I was, posting. And then a girlfriend of mine from residency, Dr. Joanne Pehem, texts me and says, you got to get on Facebook. This is like, obviously, a while ago. You got to get on Facebook. I'm like, oh, I'm not getting on another social media. I don't want to do it, right? But this is where things were happening. And so that's an example, that resistance is an example of behavioral inflexibility. Like there was, and this is from even a business standpoint. I wasn't willing at first. It took me a very long time to even bring myself onto Facebook. It took me a very long time to start doing videos, and now here I am doing live stream, which is, if those of you who know me, if you had known me, just 1 to 2 years ago, know that this is a huge display of flexibility. Now, why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about behavioral flexibility? Because in business, in life, and even what we're dealing with now, the system or person with the most behavioral flexibility wins. It controls the system. So you've heard of those people who lose everything and build it back up again, right? They lose everything, but that they build it back up again. That is because they have a level of mental flexibility and behavioral flexibility. They're willing to think outside the box. They're willing to think differently. And this is a level of resilience, and the whole definition of resilience is the ability to bounce back from. And we think about what's going on now, how resilient we are as a people, and how we have had to bounce back many times from the various levels of oppression and racial bias and racism and all of those things. We're very resilient. And I think the thing that creates the most change, the most transformation is how flexible are we willing to be in our behavior? How flexible are we willing to be in our language, in our communication? And we'll talk about that in a different live. But how flexible are you willing to be in any situation such that you can actually control the circumstance that's happening to you? Now, there are a lot of ways in which the system is set up to not allow control of certain people. That's why we are where we are today. And some of that is, and I just recorded a podcast on this, some of that has to do with the unconscious conversation that has been called into the very fabric of our minds, right? The very fabric of our minds. And so what happens is we begin to believe in our own behavior or mental inflexibility. We believe that we can't change, or we believe that we don't have that kind of control, that kind of power, when in fact, we have a lot more control and power than we think, as demonstrated by a lot of what's going on now with the protest and the things that are starting to change, the calling for the police defunding, the statues being taken down, all of these things that are happening. It's because of that. Okay, this being one way did not work. And now we have to employ this sort of behavioral flexibility and move in a different way. And we need to continue to remember that. And this is like, I'm talking globally, but you can apply this also to your own life, right? When you talk about career, when you talk about businesses, the businesses that succeed are the businesses that have the most mental and behavioral flexibility, right? I'm on my third career, I would say, second career, but like making a transition into a third iteration of what I already do. But that is because I have enough flexibility of mind to see that for the amount of gifts that I have, I can be serving in this particular way. So as we look at us, as you look at yourself in your career, in your job, in your family, in your business, and you think about what's coming, what's up on us, you think about what's going on in the nation, you think about the changes since the pandemic, especially docs who have had to, in less than, a couple of weeks, go from seeing patients in office to telemedicine, corporations who have had to all of a sudden implement work from home schedules. This is called behavioral flexibility. When we start to look at a more global scale, culturally speaking, at how does behavioral flexibility help us to be more in control of the narrative rather than be controlled by the narrative, then that's where we'll actually wield our power as a culture, as a system, and begin to start to dismantle this underlying insidious conversation that has been woven into the fabric of our nation, of our culture, of individuals. You see what I'm saying? So, hey, Tanya, I see you. And so that is what I mean by the system or the person, because again, this applies at the individual level as well as it applies to the cultural, the bigger level. And I always talk big picture, but I always like to chunk it down to the individual level so you can in your personal life see where this applies. Where does this apply in your relationship? Where is it that you are running into brick walls in your conversations, in your relationships? Where in your jobs or in your communication with your boss or your colleagues are you running into brick walls? Where with your children are you running into brick walls in your communication, right? And I'll talk about this, I think, in a future live. There are no inflexible, there are no, what is it? I'm forgetting. I'm going to have to look it up. There are no bad they're only inflexible communicators. That's what it is. And there's the full one I'll talk about later. I just kind of blocked it out right now because I'm in it with you all about this behavior of flexibility. So look into your life. Look into your life. Look into your job. Even look at us culturally. Look at how we can begin to see where we can be more flexible in our behavior. We can do something. I mean, stepping outside the box. That means thinking about something new, thinking about a conversation that's never been had before, thinking about an action that's never been done before, right? That's what constitutes behavioral flexibility. Oh, it doesn't work this way. Let's do it this way. For example, oh, you know, the demonstration, the protest has worked, but also how do we've done that in the past and it has made a difference in the past. What other way can we speak in which we will be heard? What other way can we speak in which we'll be heard? And that's economic speak, right? Some organizations, big organizations, only understand economic speak, right? So there's that. So how are the ways that you can be behaviorally flexible and be willing to be uncomfortable? Because guess what? Shifting behavior is not always comfortable, y'all. Changing your behavior is not always comfortable. And you know, you have to be willing to step into the uncomfortable or the discomfort and remain in that discomfort for as long as it takes for the change to be made. Okay. You have to be willing to exist inside the discomfort. You know, and I speak about myself all the time as an entrepreneur. That's where I live. Any entrepreneurs in the house, comment, let me know that you're listening. Entrepreneurs, understand that your life, successful entrepreneurs understand that in your life, you exist inside of discomfort all the time. That's where you're more successful. So then how are we going to be successful in this endeavor is to put ourselves at the source, and that could be uncomfortable, right? As we're doing now, and remain there and stand. And collectively, right? You want to get uncomfortable, have uncomfortable conversations, have the uncomfortable conversations, right? Speak when your stomach feels like it's in knots. You know, call out when things need to be called out. Go and start the conversations that you ordinarily wouldn't start. These are not conversations I normally have, by the way, right? So even in this conversation, it's outside the comfort zone. Go unscripted. I'm an extremely scripted person. Those of you who know me know this about me. I'm an extremely scripted person. Go unscripted. Because at the end of the day, and this goes for, I'm going to say it again, this goes for the global, but it also goes for your life, your personal life. And you know, it's so interesting. Sometimes we will put our attention on what's happening out there, right? To avoid looking at what's going on in here. People will keep their attention on what's going on out there to avoid what's going on in here. And the ultimate change happens here at the unconscious level. The ultimate transformation, the getting back to who you are, to who you know you are, to being reminded of who you are, the breakthroughs in performance, the understanding where your trauma comes from, the understanding where your negative self-talk comes from, the understanding where the fear and the anger and the sadness and the hurt really comes from, right? Generation, personally and generationally speaking, understanding that. And I find it very interesting that when it comes to being uncomfortable, that people would rather remain in comfort and blind than be uncomfortable and create shifts inside of ourselves that collectively will give us power to be behaviorally flexible as a community. And if that makes sense, type in the comments that makes sense. If it makes sense, type in the comments that it makes sense. So I wanted to bring this today because I think it's important for us to recognize, where we are doing amazing things from a flexibility, a behavior flexibility standpoint, and where we still have a ways to go, where we still have the marathon ahead, and where we must be willing to step into the discomfort and remain there for long-lasting change to happen. And we must be willing to do it not only out there for the collective, but we need to be able to do it within ourselves. So if you are, wanting to know more, wanting to hear more about these kinds of conversations and how to be powerful in communication, how to really begin to do that kind of work, actually just start a Facebook group. And I'll post it in the comments. And it's a community where we're going to be talking a lot more, delving a lot more into the mastery of language, the mastery of the unconscious mind, the mastery of behavior, the mastery, the really being at the source of our lives, the really being the true source, taking the reins of ourselves and of our lives, and then how we as a collective, once we have taken the reins of our lives, once we have mastered that internal dialogue, that internal communication, how can we then collectively begin to speak that powerful language and then create this change, this long-lasting transformation that's going to happen on a national and global level. If you want to join that conversation, if you think you want to learn more about these unconscious conversations, number one, you can just, I'm going to put the link in the comments, click on the community, the link for the Facebook community. And you can also, if you want to learn more, go to drmaisha.com and register for Remapping Your Mind for manifestation and success. And you can register right from the homepage. And what that will do is that will begin to give you that deeper understanding of all the things that I'm talking about. Because at the end of the day, when I talk about the unconscious mind, when I talk about things like neuro-linguistic programming, when I talk about hypnosis, when I talk about all of these unconscious mind things, I'm talking about the mastery of language. I'm talking about the mastery of communication, because where we exist is inside of communication. Bottom line, where we exist is inside of communication. And mastering that communication, mastering that language, both internally, so that we can master the external expression of it. And by the way, you all know that words constitute only 7% of our communication, right? Words only constitute 7% of the communication. I think I talked about that earlier in the week. The other 93% is nonverbal. So we want to master our inner thought process. We want to master our inner the values. We want to get in touch with all that stuff so we can master language internally and master our listening process, and then be able to master the expression of that communication, because then that gives us that behavior, that mental flexibility and the behavioral flexibility to be able to change bigger systems. And that's what I'm talking about. And that's what I'm committed to. So you want to learn more about that? Join the Facebook community. I'll put the link in the comments. And you can also, like I said, go to drmaisha.com, register for Remapping Your Mind for manifestation, and start to get educated, re-educated, expanded education, because personal development is the only way we grow. All right, y'all. Got it in today. So I will see you when I see you. Most likely on Monday is my next live stream. But of course, if I get inspired, you'll see me again before. Y'all have a great day. Namaste.